Hi there, and welcome to 31284 Web Services Development. The purpose of this video is to give you a brief introduction to what the subject is about and how the subject will run this semester. People sometimes look at the title of this subject and think it's going to be about developing web pages or websites. In fact, what we will be working towards is developing web services, which is something a little bit different. While websites are designed for humans, the kinds of web services we will create by the end of the subject are designed for computers. In other words, web services are about computer-to-computer interactions, and that's the main focus of this subject. We will also learn a little bit about developing interactive web applications too, though. Along the way, we'll cover technologies like JSP, or Java Server Pages, and XML, and software libraries for processing XML in Java. To be very clear, this is a programming subject. Before you start this subject, you should be able to write simple programs in the Java language. We won't be using advanced Java features, but you do need to be competent at basic Java programming to succeed in this subject. Just in case your Java is a bit rusty, we will have some activities at the beginning, before the first class, where you can self-assess your current Java knowledge and brush up on some areas if you need to, and this will give you a great start to the session. Each week we'll have a 1-hour lecture, but a lot of the time the lecture will be more about demonstrating some of the programming concepts rather than just reading off PowerPoint slides. So it's up to you to read over the lecture materials before coming to class, otherwise the in-class demos might not make much sense. The main face-to-face learning will take place in the lab classes. These will have a tutorial component where the tutor will discuss the week's concepts with you in an interactive format, as well as a lab component, where you will work on that week's programming task on your own. In most weeks, you will need to submit a copy of the code you've been working on in the lab before the end of class, and a small portion of the subject's marks are for completing these weekly exercises. But if you want to succeed in this subject, you will also need to do your own self-study outside of class time. Apart from reading the week's lecture materials in advance, you should also access a book chapter or other online resources relating to the week's content. Unfortunately, there is no single textbook available that neatly covers all of the topics in this subject. But on UTS Online, there are links to various different books which cover the subject material. Many of these are available electronically through the UTS library, so you don't need to buy them, and you don't even need to leave home to access them. Different books have different styles, so pick one or more that makes sense to you, and use that to help you learn the subject material by cross-referencing the weekly lecture topics against the practical examples. Of course, books are not the only resource. You can also find online tutorials or use resources like lynda.com. Finally, on the topic of assessment. The subject outline has more details, but in summary, one assessment task relates to the work you complete in class. It involves two aspects of in-class work. One is being able to answer questions about the weekly topics that you will have researched in advance, or perhaps completing a small in-class quiz on the weekly topics. The other part is submitting the weekly lab exercises or programming tasks and getting them to work. The second main assessment task is a major programming assignment which will be done in teams, where you will develop a medium-sized Java application that incorporates web services. And the third assessment task is a final exam at the end of semester. None of the assessment tasks are compulsory or must-pass tasks. To pass this subject, you just need to get an overall aggregate mark of 50% or better.